centrally located, so there was a crisscross of travel all through South Brunswick, and where it crisscrossed, a tavern would be built. And when a tavern would be built, a few houses would come, and that would form a little cluster.
Kingston is interesting because it's a divided community. Kingston encompasses both sides of Route 27, and half of it is Franklin Township, Somerset County, and the other half is South Brunswick, Middlesex County. Monmouth Junction is different in that this is basically where most of the older residents have lived, those that were here the last 100 years or so. Because Monmouth Junction was really a very, very active center. This was where the train station was in the early 1900s, and many of the people worked on the railroad. The main road in Dayton had it was the highway in the old days with the carriages, and it had the two main hotels. And as a matter of fact, we were much bigger when we were incorporated. Parts of what are now Plainsboro and Cranberry were also part of South Brunswick in the original deed incorporation.
It was sort of on a main stop between Philadelphia and New York. It was a farming community. People who had lived their lives here pretty much.
Where Good Time Charlie's is now, there was, it was called Brooks Tavern, which I understand was a stopping place for George Washington. It was the main stop between New York and Philadelphia, actually, at that time. There were hitching posts right out in front of the house next door. There's a mill down by the river, and now where the new road goes across, there was a little winding road that took you right around over a little bridge. The bridge is still there if you're down that way. And you would come right alongside of the mill onto the Princeton side of 27.
A lot of farmland. Very few. We even had horses being drawn on the roads at those days. And then there's the old Red Maple farm up on Raymond Road, which goes back to, I understand, to the slave days when they used to have a underground go through Kingston. And there was a tunnel leading from the house to the garage so that people could disappear if they so wanted to if somebody came to check the house out. We used to have the canal open to the boats, and the boats would come through Kingston, and you'd see the mules dragging the big yachts through to go from the Delaware to the Raritan. Kingston was there before the canal was built. Kingston's been there since 1673. Of course, the Presbyterian Church dates way back, even though it's in Franklin's side of the town. But that dates way back to over 300 years old.
It wasn't too long ago that South Brunswick was a rural and agricultural community. And it remained that way much later than some of the surrounding townships.
I think of South Brunswick in the beginning and during the First World War, when it was the troop trains ran freely to and fro, and the Army trucks went down the dirt ridge road. That's the impression, my early impression. It was a logging area. The log trucks would go by, driven by horses. There weren't any street lights. There wasn't any fire department. First aid. You made your own entertainment. It was, you got to know your neighbors very well. So many people have asked me where the 13 one-room schools, why they started. And it's simply because it was an agricultural area. And so when there were a few houses, the children were taught at home. And then they would go from house to house. And at that time, they would hire somebody to come in and teach the children. And from that, all around this township is the way each little school started. The first villages were Kingston, Fresh Ponds, and Road Hall. Fresh Ponds and Road Hall are now would be on the Cranberry South River Road, And that was in the 1780s. And in the 1800s, it was Franklin Park, the Ridge Road, the Mapleton School, and Scott's Corner Schools. In 1850, it was Little Rocky Hill, Pleasant Hill, and Dayton. 1870, Deans and Sand Hills, and in 1889, the Monmouth Junction, first one-room school. The teacher was the janitor. She had to sweep the school. She had to go in the morning and build the fire. And pencils she would get and cut in half so they would last longer. Look, in 1851, the Board of Education took over the public school system in South Brunswick Township, and they allotted $600 a year to run those 13 schools. And that's where it all started. And they existed until, really 1928. By that time, it was all consolidated to the Dayton, Deans, and Monmouth Junction schools.
South Brunswick has a very strong sense of community. You have to understand we're probably an unusual conglomerate of about 6 unincorporated villages, if you will. I'll just name them briefly: Kingston, Little Rocky Hill, Kendall Park, Dayton, Deans, and Monmouth Junction. It's very hard when you come from disparate villages to have a sense of community, but yet we do. And I think that's a wonderful sense of community for a town that's spread out 41 square miles.
A growing, caring community. It's rapidly growing, but it's not losing its spirit of cooperation. You have all the different communities, Kendall Park, Dayton, Deans, Monmouth Junction. And when people first come in, they don't realize that they're part of a whole community of South Brunswick. I mean, they'll call and say, I wonder what the population of Kendall Park is. Well, we don't have it like that, you know. Well, I live there, that's my city. Well, you know, it's really South Brunswick.
It's a metropolis anymore. I think we had 6 houses on Kingston Lane when I first came out here. And of course, as I say, it's now a whole metropolis. You had to go either into New Brunswick or Highland Park to do any amount of marketing. There was nothing in the area except, you know, the local little store, Young's store, which was right on my corner, where you got bread and milk if you had to, you know. But that was it.
In 1940, we had Quaker City Bus that had a stop right at the end of Kingston Lane. One at Dean's Lane on Route 1, the other one on the old 130, which is now just George's Road, which was very convenient to go either south or north. The township had a clerk that worked out of his home. We had one policeman who was police chief, even going to the movie theater. The closest one we had was New Brunswick in those days. And it wasn't so simple to get there. I had to get on a school bus to go to Jamesburg to attend high school.
When I was growing up, I went to school in Kingston in a small school that everybody attended the same thing. We only had, all 8 grades were in one school. We had 2 or 3 grades in the same classroom, 6th, 7th, and 8th, all shared the same room. I graduated from Kingston School in '38, went to Princeton High. A lot of our students also went to Jamesburg High in South Brunswick Township. We were divided that way, that if you lived past a certain spot in South Brunswick, you went to Jamesburg High, and if you lived here in this area, you, in our area, you went to Princeton High.
South Brunswick had to develop. If not, we would not have had the creativity, we would not have had the development, the ideas, the forward moving, if only the old people had been left here. You know, when Kendall Park came, it was quite a shock.
Kendall Park, which was really the first development in town. And there was a lot of anti-development from the people that lived here. They didn't want those people over there. Kendall Park gotten its approvals, I would say, in the mid-50s. It was not until, I think, 1957, 58, in that time that the first families began to move in.
Now we've become transient, and that happened with the first development that came in, of course, Kendall Park. People moved out here from the city, and made their homes here. The whole socioeconomic picture changed in South Brunswick then. There were business people, there were professionals. We had more doctors, accountants, and lawyers who came out, and you also had just the general white-collar office people who came and commuted to the city for their jobs on trains and buses.
Oh, there was a lot of resentment amongst the public here. Well, in 1940, I believe we had all of 5,000 people that covered all of South Brunswick. Well, Kendall Park alone, I think, contributed half of that again. So you can see the balance changed, the voting power changed, and everything else that went with it. So there was a lot of resentment about the influx of city people. And most of them came out of the city that moved out here. Well, apparently there was enough here to attract the city folks because they kept on coming, never did stop, and they're still coming today. Kendall Park became one of the affordable areas for people to come into the township. And they're some of the foundations yet of today's South Brunswick, because they really changed things and made things happen and contributed a good deal to what we are enjoying here today.
Let me say that South Brunswick Township really had to start having residents because all of the towns were small. I mean, I think we had at the time before Kendall Park was built, we probably didn't have more than 2,000 or maybe 2,500 residents in the whole township. So if you were going to grow, you had to build residents someplace. And it did take a lot of farmland to build Kendall Park. Of course, when you look at Kendall Park today, and if you looked at Kendall Park when it was first built, you say, why did they destroy all those woods and land that they did, and no trees? It was barren, it looked awful. All you saw was homes. Today, I would say Kendall Park is a very nice looking community with all the trees growing up and the bushes and the maintenance and the upkeep of the homes.
I mean, here we had an area of 2,500 people and 500 children in the school system. Kendall Park came, and it immediately increased to 4,000 pupils in the school. And that was quite an adjustment. At that time, I was elementary supervisor, and you know, you meet the people from Brooklyn and Long Island and New York and all over, and they all had their ideas what a system should be. But it all merged very well.
We had a reunion of the first families and friends of Kendall Park, and it was very interesting to sit here and listen to some of the stories they told about when they got read the ads in the paper for this Kendall Park group of homes in the rolling hills and green valleys. When they came out, all they found was sand. They had piping that didn't work if they ran water in the sink, it backed up in the bathroom, those kinds of things. But the one thing that came out of that, because most of them were from the city, from New York and Long Island and those kinds of places, they were out here and they were thrown together in a situation where they really didn't have very much, and the people from the other side of town didn't think too much of them. And what it did was it brought them together, and they are almost like a family. I mean, it was very obvious when you were sitting here and seeing these people come in. It was a real sense of family that they had because they had been nestled like that together.
Most of the people did not realize that they were now living in the country. And they didn't realize that everything out here was volunteer. That's the one thing that South Brunswick probably has for years, is the volunteer system. And when the people first started to move into this area, they didn't realize that there wasn't a paid ambulance or a paid fire company in the area to their homes. I know of the reason Kendall Park Fire Company was started was one of the people living in Kendall Park, home burned down. And that started the Kendall Park Fire Company. He was the instrument that began getting the Kendall Park Fire Company together. And the Kendall Park Squad came along a little bit after that. And then, of course, Kingston Squad, which is the baby of the township. was formed in 26 years ago. It's going on 27 now. In 1972, we were incorporated. And since then, we try to cover completely the township with the volunteer system. We do, to this day, do not have a paid person that is a member of the fire companies or a member of the squads. They're all volunteers.
South Brunswick is a township of 43 square miles, a population of somewhere between 30 and 33,000 people, and about a fourth of those people are in our schools. 46% of the people who live here, of all the people who live here, are between the ages of 20 and 45. So it's a young community with a high ratio of students to total population. And we've been growing rapidly. It's an active community. There's a lot of energy and motion. If I were going to try to use one word to summarize South Brunswick, I would say it's energetic.
I meet people from all walks of life, and I'm always fascinated to learn about where they're from and what they're all about, and they contribute to the town in a lot of different ways. Some do it culturally, some through their music, through their art, some even through their politics, if you will.
There are people in South Brunswick now that are so involved with the community. In 1980, as a matter of fact, we received a notice from the United States Olympic Committee that the Olympic torch was being brought through South Brunswick, and you know, some of the towns were having celebrations around it. And there was a slight problem with having a celebration. The torch was coming through at 4 o'clock in the morning in the winter. But where this town turned out, we had over 400 people here at 4 o'clock in the morning. We had a reception right in this room, and we had the old fire truck, the snorkel, and we had Boy Scouts who got up on the snorkel and were able to light candles for everyone from the Olympic torch. So the spirit has been alive in South Brunswick for a long time. It just keeps getting bigger as we get more people. I know school events, people turn out for those. Volunteers, we had an Anne Frank exhibit here a couple of years ago, and they had thousands of volunteers working on that exhibit. A few years ago, I guess it's been 8 or 9 years now, a group of veterans asked me about working together with them to put up a veterans monument. And we worked on that. We raised the funds, we put it up. We had, the day it was dedicated, we had the Marine Corps band here from Quantico, Virginia. Had a wonderful celebration, and everybody came out and took part in it. And those are the kinds of things that stick in my mind.
We now have B'nai Tikva on Finnegan's Lane, which for the high holidays houses, oh gosh, 800 people. We've got tremendous Hebrew school of 200 kids. This was unreal. St. Cecilia's is right across from me. They have a 5 o'clock mass on a Saturday afternoon. The parking lot's filled to overflowing. And for the masses they have on Sunday morning, likewise. Comes Christmas and Easter, all the cars are up and down, up and down Kingston Lane. It's almost unbelievable that this has happened in the township. All the religious organizations have flourished.
We've had some great celebrations. 4th of July, for instance, the fireworks, which I think they're bringing back now.
People of South Brunswick are really friendly people, I think. Everyone seemed to always be willing to help each other. It didn't seem to make much difference what part of the township that you came from, although everybody had their own preference. I mean, you know, everyone said Kingston's better or Monmouth Junction's better, but that was good. I mean, there were baseball games between the fire companies and things that families would go to and enjoy. You'd look forward to that night when you would go. Everyone pulls together in the end. I mean, that has been proven time and time again, whether it's something for the township or the big fire or you know, something in first aid. Everybody pulls together and works together without any problem at all. It's a case of working together not only with each other, but other organizations in the community. And that really, it brings a closeness.
You know, you have the businessman. You have just about any sort or mixed variety of whatever you would like to say living in South Brunswick. You have the engineers, you have the doctors, you have medical people who are nurses, and et cetera. So it's a very mixed population. It's not a one type of population. And then you have us all retired people living here.
I mean, there's just a mixture of people moving to South Brunswick, which brings all kinds of energy and excitement. I think in our senior class last year, there were over 40 languages spoken. And so we really look like America in many ways. We're about our student population is about 18% Asian American. It's about 10% African American. We're getting a few more Hispanic Americans moving into town, and the rest people who've lived here for a long time or who are Caucasians. And so there's a wonderful mixture about this town.
There's nothing that I can specifically lock in on. There's not one thing about South Brunswick I like. I like the diversity. I like the people. I like the township government. We have a lot of industry, and we have a lot of great industries. When I started here, we had an industrial commission, and the industrial commission had signs all over town. Welcome to South Brunswick. We'd love to have you. We'd love your business. And I think that while the slogans have changed through the years, I think that is still the philosophy of South Brunswick, that we would like to have their business. We have a movie theater now that we didn't have. We have all kinds of restaurants. There's been talk that there's a golf center being planned.
And we've attracted some tremendous industries like IBM, Kodak, and many of those Fortune 500 names to come to South Brunswick, which I think is a great achievement.
I think business is good for the township. I think they've done a great job with the land that's used over in the Monmouth Junction area, near the turnpike and so forth. And there's businesses still in Kingston, which kind of makes a nice hometown type thing.
Wyeth Ayres is a very good company that has its picnic, and when it does have its picnic, it always invites some of the fire company and some of the squad members there to the picnic, basically to more or less make sure nobody gets hurt, but you know, they're also were guests of theirs. Dow Jones is probably one of the biggest corporates in the South Brunswick area as far as it goes.
I think Dow Jones is the largest business neighbor. But around Exit 8A, we have many other outstanding packaging centers, distribution centers. The location of South Brunswick, halfway between New York and Philadelphia, makes it very convenient as a distribution center for some of the major companies in this country. Should mention Wyeth Ayres because they've been terrific in providing scientists who will come into our schools and talk about how science works in the real world. They bring male and female scientists in so that everyone can see that there's an opportunity for all of our children. We're right in the middle, right between Princeton and Rutgers in this technology, pharmaceutical. A lot of the original work on high-definition TV was done in this so-called corridor. So it's a very intellectually stimulating environment.
We raised 4 children, and they all went to South Brunswick schools. And of course, we were into the, well, it was PTA at that time, PTO now, involved in there and in their sports. And I've always found it great. I really have. They've always had a system that was willing to help. And our oldest son was the first one to go completely through, which was the new high school then, the old high school now, and he was the first class to graduate go through the whole school from 9th to 12th. And there were always many things for them in the school system.
There's a very proud history about South Brunswick and the South Brunswick schools. It's a system that's always been devoted to putting children first, taking care of its children. We have just a variety of things coming together to help create this superior culture, one that really cares about children and tries to find a way for each one to grow, at the same time keeping the focus on the academics and making sure that our children can read with comprehension and understanding, they can write with clarity and force, and they can understand mathematics at a new and more demanding level. Our buildings are used almost around the clock. And it's very difficult, for example, to find an empty basketball court here almost any time of the year. So it's a very active place. Very involved in the community. We just had a bicentennial parade, and all of our schools produced floats and programs for that. Of course, the band led the parade, and I had the opportunity, along with board members, to walk with the band. It was quite an event because you may remember we had a flood. We had a heavy rain, and so we marched through that.
The bicentennial events started February 21st, 1998, and they're going to go February 20th with the closing event. I knew the birthday bicentennial was coming up, and it didn't seem like anybody was really too interested in doing it, and I knew it was a big event. And I said I would start it until we got somebody, and then I got so involved in it, I stayed with it. It started off with a birthday bash with over 3,500 people. We had over 70 events at 5 different locations, and people were thrilled. It was a wonderful. Did you ever have an event and you had that many people and there really were very little complaints? I think we only had 2 complaints out of the whole day, so that's a positive. And then all through the year we've had different types of events. We've had a car show, we have a bicycle event coming up. We've had cultural events at the Weatherhill site, an art show, history events. And then we're going to conclude with a concert by the New Jersey Pops on the 20th.
Oh, I think it's been great for the whole year. I'm really disappointed the day that it rained for the parade, but we were there. It was a shame that it rained because even in all that rain, seeing all the people and children that were there, kind of did your heart good to see everybody out to support. And I think that's what it is. We're little different villages, but yet we're all one.
There was wonderful participation in this bicentennial celebration. Well, I not only want to say happy birthday, I want to say thank you to the residents for participating to the extent that they have. We only get one 200th birthday. I'm not going to be around for the other 201. And people have responded wonderfully. They've been supportive. They've gone to the events. Oh gosh, I was all over the place. I was at Indian Fields. I was at the high school. I was at the community center. I try to hit all the events during the particular bash itself. There was something for everybody, and I think that's important. There was arts. There was music. There was crafts. There was seminars and demonstrations. If somebody wanted to find out what was going on, they certainly had plenty of opportunity. There was music for the teenagers at the upper not the Crossroads School, I should say. I keep calling it the high school, but that's the old high school. There was something for everybody, and people came out in a big way. And it shows that people were aware that the Bicentennial Committee did a fabulous job in making it accessible to the people. They advertised it. There was, if someone didn't know about the Bicentennial at South Brunswick, then they just plain weren't paying attention. So I'm very proud to have participated in that, and I send along special thanks to the Bicentennial Committee for doing a fantastic job.
It's been a labor of love. It's taken a lot of my time. My weekends have just been consumed with this, and but it was a labor of love, and I feel leaving the township next year that I've left my mark, and that was, I wanted the people to have a good time. I wanted to make it an event where they could do a lot of things without being costly, and I think I've succeeded in that.
To me, South Brunswick is the best part of Middlesex County. It may be the tail end where everybody forgets that we're here, but it is still the best part of Middlesex County. It is one that has grown, but at the same time has not forgotten what it is. And that's a community of people who believe in themselves and in the township.
I think it's a great place with a lot of opportunities, a lot of things to do, a lot of places really to go for enjoyment, picnics, parks. As a matter of fact, we were at Reichler Park Saturday for a picnic, and it's really nice to have places to go to. And there's shopping, I mean, and there's other places for children that you can take them.
People talk about our ambitious future for South Brunswick. I think that the board members, the community, the teachers are just very excited about the opportunities we have for the future. So we want our children to be prepared to do well in college and later life, to create some personal meaning for themselves, to earn a living and take care of themselves, and to contribute to the continuing development of this township, this state, and this society. So we have high aspirations and great ambitions for our future. I think it's a wonderful place to be.
It's very rewarding to see a township grow like this. Remember now, it's growing, in my eyes, from 2,000 to 35,000, and there's a lot here.
I came to South Brunswick because I wanted to raise my family here. I looked at a lot of different things that I suppose everyone does when they move into a new town. What are the taxes? What are the schools like? And what's happening in town in terms of its composition, its businesses, its people. This is the place where I wanted to raise my son, who's 2.5 now. This is the place that I wanted to be. It's vibrant, it's growing, it's challenging. There's no lack of something to do in South Brunswick. We have cultural events, we have school events, we have musical events. South Brunswick offers it all, and I don't think that any other community can really boast that to the same extent that South Brunswick can.
I believe South Brunswick's on the right path for the future. South Brunswick has always been and continues to be on the cutting edge, so to speak. I believe South Brunswick will continue to prosper and grow.